This is Dave Rosendahl of MindFire, and I will be your moderator for the discussion today. Now, before I put the panel in the hot seat, I just want you to know we got a lot of questions in advance of this event from all of you who are participating, and I'm going to be weaving your questions and your real-time comments into the conversation today. So I want you to keep that little chat window open. Reply to me, reply to us as we're talking through this material today, because I want you as a part of the conversation. Now, I want you to have context for the three folks that we have here on the screen so that you know what they are bringing to the conversation today as it relates to AI. So first up is Paul Gallagher. He's got 30 years of experience in printing and graphic communications. As the VP of Information Services there at Allied, he brings that expertise in printing technology, data, and programming to the work that they do for their clients. Before Allied, he was with IBM and Hart Hanks, two names that we all know, where he worked in print production and data management and ascended to leadership roles in those organizations. Paul, thanks for being with us here today. How the heck are you?
Great. I'm excited to be part of the panel, and I think it's going to be a great discussion.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. Next up is Oz. He is the Chief Revenue Officer at Deep Dub. I will give him a second here in just a moment to tell you a little bit about what they do. He oversees marketing, sales, and business development there, leveraging 25 years of technical and business leadership. And specifically today, he's bringing us some really interesting insights around AI and machine learning. Before DDub, the company he's currently at, he co-founded a company called Kytera, which was focused on offering innovative solutions for seniors at home. And so he's bringing a wide, kind of varied view to the conversation today, including the fact that he's lived in different parts of the world, Europe and Asia. In fact, before the event, we were talking about his recent travels. And I think it's important to ensure that we have a global perspective on this AI conversation, because frankly, folks, sometimes we think we're ahead of the game here in North America, but that simply isn't always true. And so I'm looking forward to the insights that he brings. He's got an MBA. He's got a bachelor's in electrical engineering from Tel Aviv University, so brings a lot of expertise to the conversation. Oz, we're grateful that you're here with us today. How the heck are you?
I'm good. Thank you, Dave, for having me. I'm very excited. I'm looking forward to this discussion, and hopefully, like you said, I'll bring a slightly different perspective to the entire discussion here.
That's what we want. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you and your time that you've invested in this community. Lastly, I want you to meet Ellie. Ellie is here with us. She began her journey at a marketing agency before joining Allied. At Allied, she rose from service positions, customer services, and client services to now being a partner and an executive team member there at Allied, where she oversees marketing and branding and works closely with sales and business development. Allied is a company that Ellie and Paul represent. I'm going to give Ellie a moment here in just a second to tell us more about Allied and what they do. But there at that organization, she is helping customers turn what she calls grand visions into tangible projects, something that every organization, every client needs. We have big ideas and we need to figure out how to make them actionable, right? And so Ellie is here with us today, bringing her perspective on the industry. She's got a bachelor's in business administration and an MBA. Ellie, thank you for being here today, and thank you for pulling all of us together in this event. How are you?
I'm well, Dave. Thanks for being here. Thanks for hosting for us. And thanks to everybody that's joining us. We're really excited to learn some great insights about AI today.
I see Kurt saying a great panel, and indeed it is. Thank you, Alexis, Allison, Allie, Amber, Amy, Ashley, Bradley, Brandon, Charles. I see a bunch of new names coming into the room here. And if you just joined us, you haven't missed anything yet. I just introduced the panel. And I want to give you, Ellie, a chance before we dive into the material here, the core of the material. Tell us a little bit about Allied so that we have context for what you do for your customers.
Of course. So Allied's roots are in commercial print, but throughout the years, we've responded to the changing landscape and the changing marketplace and adapted our services to include direct mail, fulfillment, digital print, and digital services. And now with the commercialization of AI, Allied is in what Taylor Swift might call our transformational era.
Are you a Swiftie?
You know, who doesn't like Taylor Swift, right?
That's true. Yes, indeed. Well, thank you, Ellie. Thanks for sharing that. And I know we're going to have an opportunity towards the end for folks if they want to know more about Allied to ask some questions. So let's get started, everyone. As I mentioned just a second ago, the way we're running today's session is likely a little bit different than some of those that you've experienced in the past. I am going to bring us to focus in on the ideas that surround AI and the impact on marketing. But to do that, I'm not only going to be pulling out insights from the panel and weaving in the questions that you as an audience submitted in advance, but I also want you engaged during the event. So I'm going to be asking you questions. I'm going to be dropping some of your names, and I want you to give us feedback, almost as if you were sitting on the virtual stage with the panel here, because your voice matters here, and I want to involve it in the conversation. So I need your commitment to participate in that way. Can you do that for me? Make sure you know where the chat is, open it up, and drop the word yes in the chat right now if you are committed to engaging with us during the event. So I see Charles saying yes, Amber saying yes, Darren yes, Lisa yes. Come on, I want everyone saying yes. David, yes, David is a yes for sure. Julie is a yes. Please keep those yeses coming in because I want to make sure you stay engaged with us as we get into this material. Now, let me start with section 1 here. I see the yeses coming in. Thank you, Lita. Thank you, Brandon. To get us started, I think it's really important that as we talk to the panel here and as we involve those of you here in the virtual room, that we level set as to where AI is right now, because I know everyone's coming into this from a different viewpoint. Everyone's got different perspectives. Plus, I know that you're all very busy. I doubt that many of you have time to just play on the internet and download and experience new apps that are being released. It seems like daily now. There's all sorts of new things that are coming out that are using AI, but I doubt that you all have time to just sit around and play with those. So I want to make sure that you understand, since we're all coming at this from a different point of view, where AI is right now. And I think it's also important that given that you're all busy, a reality of many of you here, probably everyone here in the room, that you don't let that reality lead you to think that maybe AI isn't applicable to you or to your business or to direct mail, or maybe that it's a fad or something that's been overhyped. There certainly are things that are overhyped. For example, these stinking monkeys. Who remembers these things, by the way? These NFTs, are they monkeys, apes? I guess they're apes. Anybody have an NFT? Anybody own one of these? I don't know if anybody here in the room does, or I guess the real question is, has anyone ever made any money with these? But in my humble opinion, you can disagree with me, these things were part of a hype cycle, these NFTs, although the underlying blockchain technology, I believe, is here to stay. But I don't see that these apes have any value that comes close to the transformative opportunities that we have with AI, what we're talking about today. So I don't want you to get lulled into a false sense of confidence that this isn't a big deal. This is a big deal. Don't let those silly monkeys, those apes, those kinds of hype cycles get you lulled into a false sense of confidence. And so what I want to do just briefly is set the playing field for the conversation around where does AI stand today? Because I don't want to assume that everybody knows what its capabilities are. So first of all, look at the screen here. Everyone look at the screen. First of all, GPT-4, which is from OpenAI, ChatGPT, is exhibiting human-level performance on professional and academic benchmarks. Here's what I mean by that. If you look at the screen, on the left here are a series of exams that obviously are designed for humans. When they took this AI and they had it take these tests, you can see the results. One thing that jumps out at me here, I'm calling just one of these out, the bar exam. AI can now take the bar exam and rank in the top decile of human test takers. Now, if that isn't incredible, look at what the previous version of ChatGPT or GPT 3.5 was able to do. It was in the bottom 10%. So between this release, 3.5 and 4, look at how it increased. Now, what you need to know about this is that they didn't train the AI on how to answer specific law-related questions. They didn't do that. It learned this stuff by digesting the corpus of data it has access to. So let that sink in for a moment. Yes, I got plenty of dad jokes. We're talking about AI, folks, that has human-level performance without being explicitly trained to do these different things. Are you getting that? Tell me in the chat. Is this making sense? Are you understanding what it can do? Let's see what else it can do. Speaking of seeing, it can also see, meaning that it can understand images of the real world. For example, look at this picture here. Make sure to look at the screen here, folks. Tell me, put in the chat, what's funny about this picture in the upper left-hand corner? What's funny about that? They took this same image and they fed it to AI and they asked the same question. Let's see what the AI says. Well, it's noticing that there's a smartphone here with a VGA connector, right, plugged into what's normally the plugging charge port for this phone. And it's able to see that within these images and realize what's going on. Here's another one. What's funny about this image? Look at the screen here. What's funny about this? Well, they asked AI the same thing. Hopefully all of you can answer this, right? But the unusual thing the AI says about this image is that there's a man ironing clothes on an ironing board attached to the roof of a moving taxi. So it's able to see this and to understand what's going on in a way that humans are also able to do. As you know, it can also drive. Does anybody have a self-driving car here? Let me know in the chat. One thing that's interesting about Tesla, you may have seen this, is that recently they updated their full self-driving. Previously, it took something like 300,000 lines of hard-coded programming to tell the car that, you know, a red light means stop, green means go, yellow for most of us means what? Punch the gas and pray like heck that it doesn't turn red. So it used to be hard-coded. Now, there's only 3,000 lines of code that activate a neural network that allows it to learn on its own. This means it's learning to drive just like you did, just like I did. Although my wife would say that I never really learned how to drive, but that's for another day. It's learning these things on its own. It can write code, and it can create images and video. We're going to be talking about that here in just a moment. And it can write. In some cases, like you or me, or certainly the case of my writing, I'm sure it can write better. Now look at this. Who is this guy? I'm sure you all know who this is. Who is this? Tell me in the chat. Anybody know what his IQ was? Let's see if anybody gets this right. Give me a guess as his IQ. What was Einstein's IQ? Yeah, it's Einstein. Yes, Amber, correct? 186, 156-ish, says Sharon. 160, says Jerry. Come on, I want to see a few more. 190, 195. Yeah, it's said that his IQ was 160, okay? Often said to be one of the smartest guys that ever lived. Anybody know what ChatGPT is at right now? It took a test. It's at 155. So the point I'm making here is that this will rapidly exceed, in the next release, what we consider to be, you know, highly gifted intelligence. It's going to increase exponentially here. What's the next release going to be? Exceptionally gifted? Profoundly gifted? And these are just some of the many things that it can do, folks. There's much, much more. We're going to talk to the panel about this here just momentarily. But I want you to understand, if this is new to you, this is what's happening. And these things aren't out in the future. These things are happening now. Ellie, I'm coming to you first. Bring us into the room as you're having meetings with marketers, clients, prospects. What are you hearing and seeing from them around how they're thinking about AI and the kinds of capabilities that we just touched on there?
Sure. So the marketers and the brands that we're talking with are generally intrigued by AI. I mean, everybody's been talking about it. It's part of conversations that we have every day. But marketers are often unsure how to apply it to their business. Many have explored with applications like ChatGPT, maybe using it as a search engine or to write some very basic copy. But others are just starting to scratch the surface and they don't really know where to start. But I think that those folks are going to learn a lot today through this conversation.
You know, one of the things that we mentioned when I introduced you is you bring kind of a diverse viewpoint, a different viewpoint than maybe Ellie and Paul. So to help us understand that, talk to us a little bit about what DeepDub does briefly, and then tell us from your point of view, give us what you see as kind of the leading edge use cases that maybe we touched on a moment ago or that you're seeing in your work that illustrate the power and the potential that AI has right now.
Absolutely. So real quick, DeepDub is on a mission to democratize audiovisual content to global audiences, basically enabling every person around the world to watch audiovisual content in their own language. So that's kind of like, you know, the very high level Well, we do obviously use generative AI technologies in the process. And one of the things that I think really touches with what marketers care about is the ability to deliver a message that will cause your audience to engage. We actually developed a platform. We can, Dave, if you don't mind, jump to show that platform, the picture of the platform that enables every person to basically upload your video and within a few minutes to localize your own video to multiple languages and make it accessible. Because in the end, as a marketer, even if you start from the print, you want your audience to jump to the digital, and there's no better engagement than talking to your audience in their own language.
So Oz, we were talking about you being in Germany last week, right? Are you saying that we could take this webinar, let's say once it's post-produced, and create a version of it that's localized to the German language for the German audience?
Absolutely. That's exactly the point. Not only in German.
Are you get?
Yeah.
Yeah, and how many other languages, as an example?
Today, with this specific platform, we support 65 languages already. And you know, it's endless. And the more we continue the process that has been convoluted and complex and really exclusive to theatrical level is now becoming more and more available to everyone, basically.
I'd love to see myself speaking German, so I got to see an example of this after the event. Is everyone in the audience getting this? Give me a 1 in the chat if you're understanding what Oz just described, and just the one example that he gave there of the power of generative AI and how it can help us from a marketing perspective take the content, take the creative, take the videos that we're creating and localize them to other languages. I see the 1 coming here. Kurt saying, same with the written word for those that have to market globally. Yes, absolutely. Charles is asking you, Oz, what's the name of the software you just mentioned? Oz, if you don't mind, drop that into the chat there for everyone. I'm going to come to you, Paul, next. From your perspective, inside of operations at Allied, how are you and your team using AI right now to improve workflow automation and, you know, make things run more efficiently there within Allied? Give us some examples of tangible things that you're doing now.
Yeah, sure. So, you know, workflow automation is one of the primary things we do in order to automate the processes that we use on a daily basis. So one of the ways is to alleviate mundane tasks. So that definitely take time, and we have AI generate code instead of using human labor, which then reduces costs for our clients. So one example is just documentation of code. So I'm sure many of our audience understand the need for documentation. Once a program or a web page or whatever it is written, you need to have documentation so that you can identify which part of the code, what's doing what, so that if another programmer or another developer steps in to make changes, they can easily identify the code that needs to be changed without having to read the entire program. So when you have 100,000 lines of code, this is obviously a pretty cumbersome task. So we use AI to read through the program or the web page or the application and identify sections of code that can now be documented on what the section does. So I think you'll see on the screen that the screenshot that's there just shows 61 lines of code. So when we run that through the automation documenter, you know, the right side of the screen shows you the documented lines with the ones that have the blue lines next to it. So in this case, out of 61 lines of code, there were 21 lines of documentation added. So imagine if this was 100,000 lines of code, and you had to go through each one of those sections in order to really what's doing what. So you don't have to look at stuff, much down the road and now have to read everything. So AI definitely cuts down on human labor for tasks that can be easily automated.
Roughly, Paul, how much time is that saving? How much human time does that save?
Well, for a workflow automation that you're automating maybe an entire process, you're talking about probably 10 to 20 hours worth of savings on labor.
Yep. And we all know how much developers, engineers love documenting their code, right? So
They don't.
Yeah, exactly. That's another dad joke right there. But this should be a welcome relief for folks who are thinking, man, I can get the machine to do that part of the work for me. So that's a good example. Paul, thank you for sharing that. We've got more examples coming up here in just a moment. What I want to do is I want to focus in now specifically on how AI is going to impact marketing. Now that we've kind of level set with what it can do, the core of the conversation is around marketing. In fact, last week, I was with a group of about 30 people in print, marketing, and data, sharing some of the leading edge things that we're seeing in the market today that relate to AI and marketing. And a question that I think was on everyone's mind, certainly those that I spoke to, was specifically, how is AI applicable to things like direct mail, which I know many of you do here. By the way, how many do direct mail? Drop DM in the chat if you do direct mail. Use direct mail, using it presently. Drop DM in the chat if you're doing direct mail. Paul, did you raise your hand? You better be doing direct mail.
I did.
Good. So let me show you an example, and then I want the experts here to dialogue with us to go a little bit deeper. I want to show you an example so everyone has a specific, tangible reference for what we're talking about. Generally speaking, in this conversation, there are 3 areas that we see AI impacting marketing, like direct mail specifically: text, images, and in data-driven insights. Now, in fact, just a few months back, I got a phone call from a direct mail manager at a $4 billion financial services company. It's a name that you'd all recognize. I can't share it here on the air. But in that call, he asked me to give them ideas on how to improve their direct mail response and their ROI. And he said, hey, why don't we go to lunch? Let's talk through your ideas. Let's see what you got. And while we were eating, I hadn't prepared for this, but I decided just on a whim to ask him, how do you feel AI is going to change direct mail for you? I wanted to kind of hear where he was at. And really the answer was pretty surprising to me. Although in retrospect, I shouldn't have been surprised. His answer was he had no idea. He hadn't even thought of it. So on a whim, like I said, I decided to show him in real time. I just made up an example. I happened to have a direct mail piece with me, which I'm going to bring up here on the screen in a second. And I said, hey, let me show you what's available now and what you could be doing. To say he was shocked was definitely an understatement, folks. He had no idea. Would you like me to show that to you? Drop a yes in the chat if you'd like to see that. I'm going to bring that up here on the screen and show you specifically what I showed him. What I did is I pulled open Excel, or Google Sheets in my case, and if you look here at the top of the screen, imagine this is a mail file, a direct mail file, right? We're all familiar with how a mail file looks and how you can version content, different buckets of people so that you can change text and imagery by those versions, right? Everyone knows what I'm talking about there, I assume. But with AI, we can take this much, much further. And I decided to show him there, and I'm going to show you here as well, how you could do this with something like ChatGPT. In order to create an image up here, the hero image up here in the upper right-hand side, and this text right here, I said, hey, let me show you what AI could actually do to improve those 2 spots. Now, I know I'm using terms, folks, or apps. We're mentioning different things here that not everybody maybe is familiar with. Don't hesitate to ask us to clarify there in the chat. If you have questions, there's no dumb questions. I want to make sure you get everything answered. As a matter of fact, what I want to know, before I show you how ChatGPT can improve this direct mail piece, I want to know a question here. I'm going to launch a poll. How many of you actually personally used ChatGPT, meaning you've put your hands on it? That'll give me context for how I'm going to show you what's up next. I'm going to give you a few seconds. I want everyone to vote here. Have you personally used it? Yes, I use it often. Yes, only a few times. No, never heard of it. No, but I intend to. And no, I never will. Don't hesitate. I want to know the truth here. I'm going to give you a few more seconds, and then I'm going to show you what I showed him. All right. Here are the results of your peers in the room. I'm going to share those results so you can see them on the screen. 27% use it often, 31% only a few times, 8% never heard of it. Fantastic. 32% say I have not, but I intend to, and 2% say I never will. I'm glad everyone's being honest. Thank you for that. The vast majority of you here, or the majority I should say, have not but intend to. That's good. That gives me context. Let me show you then specifically what I walked him through, and then I'm going to get the panel to weigh in on this. So what I've done, what you see here on the screen is ChatGPT, okay? And I go to ChatGPT and I say, hey, that direct mail piece, pretend that you're the marketer for American Express behind that direct mail piece. Currently, there's a call to action on that direct mail piece, but it's weak. Mr. AI, I want you to improve that. Do you understand what I'm asking you to do? Now, ChatGPT comes back and says, yes, I understand. You want me to craft a personalized call to action blurb? You want me to make it irresistible to each person using the data you provide me? Now, it comes back and asks me to clarify, like, are there any benefits that we want to highlight? Are there any length constraints? And so I come in here, I answer it, I say, no, I want you to use the details I give you in the mail file, and there's no length constraints. Everybody following along? Everyone can see the screen, right? Give me a yes in the chat if you can see ChatGPT here on your screen. Everyone following along? Give me a yes. Okay. Now, it had one more question for me. Any specific tone or style you want me to use? Which is a good question. And I say, okay, fine, I'll give you the answer to that. Let's do what I call business casual. I don't even know if that's an official tone, but what the heck? Let's see how smart it is, right? It says, all right, give me the mail file data for these two people. So I go over to my little spreadsheet. I grab the mail file data, and I'm just going to paste it back in. Again, just to illustrate to him and to you how this works. Here's what it's doing. It's going to create a blurb specific to Dave. As a software executive on the West Coast, you're no stranger to the fast-paced world of tech. With small kids at home, every moment counts. Discover how the Platinum Card can streamline your expenses and offer exclusive perks for your family. Dive in at, and then it lists my Pearl there. Now, Barbara Smith, she's retired. She's older, right? It says, Barbara, your golden years in the East Coast, that's where she lives, deserve nothing but the best. The Platinum Card is tailored to you to offer you the luxury and peace of mind you've earned. Experience a world of privileges tailored just for you. Okay, interesting. Now I ask it, give me a version where there's a reference to a local landmark or a historical site in the copy. Again, I want to make it specific to that individual. So for Dave, look what it does. Between navigating Silicon Valley's tech scene and enjoying family days at Golden Gate Park, you're always on the move. Barbara, it's referencing leisurely strolls in Central Park, shows at the Met. I say, all right, now give me a version that incorporates something about the lifestyle differences, West Coast versus East Coast. And it's going to talk about California's sun-kissed beaches, right? That's where I live. Or Barbara on the East Coast, Broadway shows to historic charm of New York brownstones. And of course, since I love my dad jokes and my puns, I say, hey, all right, now give me a version that incorporates puns and humor. And you can see what it's doing here on the screen. Why am I showing this to you? I want you to realize how impactful this can be and just open your minds to the possibility around how AI can help us start to create truly one-to-one communication. Now, remember that image in the upper right-hand corner. Now I'm going to ask the AI to create us an image specific to the individual. And I'm going to tell it to give me a prompt that I can use in another AI program called Midjourney. If you're not familiar with that, happy to share that with you as well. It's a specific way, it's a way where you can create images based on written prompts. So I'm asking the AI here to use the mail file data and to give me some images. So again, it's going to ask me some clarifying questions. It came back with some good questions here. I'm going to respond. I want you to use the data to be as creative as possible. I want you to make it real life. If you have any other questions, AI, let me know. Otherwise, here's the mail file. I paste it in again, the same thing I showed you. It's using a little plugin here called Imgenic. This is what creates the Midjourney prompt. And then it's going to give me those prompts. I simply take what it gives me here. It's writing the instructions, one AI for another AI, and I'm simply going to take that text and paste it into Midjourney. Now, Midjourney currently, the interface that I'm going to show you here is using something called Discord. It's a way of chatting with the AI. And you can see there's other folks in here creating other amazing images. Look at these images. These are all images created by AI. Imagine the implications for marketing. Look at these images. These are all created by AI. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take that prompt that it gave me. I'm going to copy this in, paste it right in here. That's the first one. Let me go back and get the other one for Barbara. I'm going to paste that in as well. And then it's going to take a few seconds to read my prompt and then create the images. Here's the first set of images. It's giving me 4 options. 1, 2, 3, and 4 here. These people, folks, do not exist. Are you getting this? These are AI-generated people. Look at that. These people do not exist. Now let's see what it did for Barbara. Older lady, retired. Here's the image. Are you getting this, folks? That's what it can do. That's what it can do now. And that's what I showed this executive. I'm going to bring up on the screen now specifically where we take this, where we put it inside of the direct mail pieces. But first, I want to make sure everybody's following along. Is everyone getting that? Give me a yes in the chat if you're understanding what you just saw. What you saw specifically here is that the image up here, one for Barbara, one for Dave, and the text here are specific to the data in the mail file. We're able to move past versioned content that's just different based on the bucket, right? Or the version that we want to have for one group of people versus another. And these AI images came out like that in a split second. So no more do we have one image to one group. Now we have images and text specific to individuals. Up here in the upper right, the text here, or for Barbara, up here, upper right of the text here. So that in that mail file, this content that we're looking at here for the blurb and the hero image is generated by AI. Everyone getting this? There's more. One more thing, and then I'm going to tag in the panel here. Inevitably, you probably have QBRs like we do with this particular client where you look at the reporting and their analytics, right? Inevitably, what happens? You're looking at the data, and a question comes up that's not easily represented or answered in the data, like, you know, which day of the week are best for mail to be in home based on our reporting? Or which mail file attributes are driving the most leads, right? These questions always come up extemporaneously in the context of conversation. You can connect the AI to your data source and query it in just the same way you would ask Ellie or ask Paul to give you some information about your campaign. You're going to be able to ask the AI the same thing. So let me tag in the panel now. Oz, you just described a moment ago Deep Dub and how the AI is used to, you know, localize video and the messaging. From a marketer's perspective, given what I just showed the audience, how do you think that technologies like yours are going to continue to create personalized and impactful experiences for consumers? I gave everyone just a small snapshot of that. Tell us what you think is going to happen here.
First of all, mind-blowing, but I think to me it's very clear that personalization would send your specific target audience to a personalized video in their speaking their language, addressing exactly them, very specific. So I think that's exactly the translation of taking what we just saw and applying it from the print to the digital to a personalized global engagement.
So truly a one-to-one engagement with the individual. Ellie, what about you as it pertains to generative AI, building on the example of what we just saw as it applies to text, imagery, videos, content? How do you see that kind of AI helping marketers create more effective direct mail campaigns?
Dave, over the years, you know, we've talked about one-to-one marketing, I think since I got into the industry, over 20 years now. But we find that brands struggle to implement campaigns with true one-to-one communications in them. It's a challenge to get the data that they need and then to correlate the data to an image library and to come up with all of the content that is personalized and relevant, like you just did in seconds in ChatGPT. And so that has been a barrier to entry for them. We often see materials that are personalized. There might be a first name, a salutation. Maybe we're using versions of phone numbers or URLs to track responses. We might even have A/B testing going on, but we're not doing true one-to-one marketing as we could do with tools like this. So using AI and AI prompts, certainly we can generate content, create the data profiles and segments to execute these campaigns.
Yep.
And we can incorporate them from print, direct mail into the digital channels as well. So we're really excited about what we expect the future to hold.
Ellie, I'm going to ask the audience a question, then Paul, I'm going to come to you for one here. For everybody here in the room, Amy, Clarence, Claire, Charles, Brian, David, Ashley, everybody who's here, for how many of you, drop a 1 in the chat if this is true for you, that was the first time you had seen ChatGPT used in that way on a mail file for a direct mail piece to create text and images? For how many of you, be honest, for how many of you was that the first time? Drop a 1 in the chat, just so we have a sense for how many of you were exposed to that for the first time. Kathy says yes. David, Lisa, Jerry, Dale. Yeah. First for you, Claire. Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that with us, folks, because it's very helpful for us to understand where everybody is at in the room. Paul, I want to talk to you about the data side. I touched on it briefly in that example around how we're going to be able to interact in a natural language way with our data very soon. So I want to get from you, how do you see AI impacting the ability that we have to target an audience, to acquire data that we need to target campaigns, and our ability to segment our audiences? How do you see AI playing into that?
Yeah, great question. Well, because of AI, list acquisition has become much more targeted and powerful than ever before. You might think you know how to gain clients, but if we could take your best customers and clone them, right? So with data profiling, we develop a profile of your current customers and find others that look the same as that customer. So we create these profiles using geographic, demographic, psychographic modeling, things like that. So SIC codes to sales volume to number of employees or radius, etc. So we combine that with AI predictive modeling, right? So we have licenses through a lot of different suppliers, such as Axiom, Compact, Consumer Plus, D&B, Epsilon, things like that. So a lot of what you're using, where you're pulling from, depends on whether it's a customer list or a business list. So we develop a model of what your best customers look like, and then we can, through list acquisition, can purchase that list based on your criteria. So number of records or distance, etc. So
yep.
So you'll see that list acquisition has come a very long way from a simple select all people within a 3-mile radius, or every door direct kind of thing, to really a detailed targeted selection based on your product and service and specific criteria.
Yeah, makes sense. I want to take a beat real quick here, everyone. I want to know, how are you doing? How's everyone feeling? What are you thinking right now? Take a moment there in the chat. Let us know what you're thinking. As I said, I was with a group of folks last week. As I was going through this, I could tell by looking at everyone's face what they were feeling. I can't see you, so I want to know what you're thinking. I saw excitement in the room. I saw amazement in the room. I saw shock. I saw fear. We'll talk about that here in a moment. Yeah, Charles says kind of mind blown. We had people just get up and have to walk the room because they were like, I just never even considered that this was possible. Elena saying endless opportunities, right? Lita saying wow. Darren is saying excited. Great real world examples. Kathy says I'm feeling fascination. And my therapist is always asking me to label my feelings, so I'm bringing that here to the conversation here. Hopeful. I want to call allied. Hopefully to call allied. Okay, got it. Well, I have a question for you folks. I want you to be honest. Is anybody a little bit scared? Let's imagine for a moment that you're buying into what we're talking about here, what Oz and Ellie and Paul are saying and what I'm saying here. AI is getting crazy good, and it's as good as most humans, or better in some cases, right? Think about how quickly it created those images. I was talking to these folks last week, and there was a graphic designer there, and she's like looking at her boss, the CEO, and saying, do I have a job? I know this is a controversial statement to say that AI is getting as good or better than humans, but it's real. There is a fear factor, and that's why I want to talk about the elephant in the room. Because while there are many positives to AI, I don't think we should just gloss over the fact that it does have some issues and that it can cause fear in ourselves and people in the world, right? And so I want to talk about that elephant for a moment because, as you talk to your staff, as you talk to clients, as you talk to whoever it is that you're interacting with, I've heard everything from, hey, it's going to take my job, to my staff is scared, they're not willing to use it, it's too complicated, it's too buggy, it's too hard to use. I've heard the list. It goes on and on. But the thing that I think rings true in all of that is there is an element of fear. But my perspective is that we need to normalize those feelings. Generally speaking, most of us have a fear of new things. I wasn't around then, but in the 1800s, when most of the world was farming, and this thing called the tractor came along, people were fearful of the tractor. They hated the tractor. They were freaking out, thinking that it was going to take everybody's job. But guess what? They found new jobs. That's what we do as humans. We adapt and we grow. And AI is kind of like the tractor of our time. We need to embrace it, not run from it. Something I do remember, a little history lesson here. I remember the early 90s. And my mom would say to me, 1994-ish, don't get into a stranger's car, ever. Right? She'd say, Dave, make sure you never get in a stranger's car. And whatever you do, don't meet people from the internet. Now, fast forward 2023, we literally summon strangers from the internet to get into their car, right? This is how quickly the world has changed. But I know that fear is real. And so I think we need to talk about that for a moment. Here's some data. According to this research here from the Pew Research Center, 1 in 5 workers are exposed to AI taking their job. 1 in 5. Here are the jobs that have the most risk, high exposure. Budget analysts, data entry keyers, tax preparers, technical writers, web developers, some medium exposure, chief executives. How many CEOs in here, right? You can see the list here. And honestly, looking at that, you're like, what's going to happen here? I guess it's time that we start learning how to lay some pipe, right? That's a low exposure job. Or if you look at Goldman Sachs, 300 million full-time jobs globally are at risk. Now, I'm an optimist. I look at the positive side of these things. I look at how do we take advantage of these to grow our businesses, to grow ourselves, to do better for those that we're caring for. But I want to hear from you, panel, and from the audience. Maybe you see this differently. Paul, I'm going to put you on the hot seat first. What are your thoughts on the fears that people feel about AI?
I'll have to say that I think the number one fear people have with AI, specifically related to our business and printing and marketing, is where's my data going, and is it out there for everyone to see? So how secure is my data when, for instance, when I was talking about data profiling, data modeling, so how secure is my data if you're going to use these tools to do that? So our process is we create our data profile internally without transmitting any of your data into a cloud or anywhere else for that matter, right? So your data is a valuable resource. It's worth a lot of money. So we protect your data and don't allow any PII or anything like that out there. So there are also concerns with SOC 2, HIPAA regulations, credit card information, and so many other laws and regulations concerning data itself. So the only interaction we have when acquiring lists is that we push the profile, not your data, not your name and address and other information that you've given to us, but we only push the profile out. So we don't use your actual data to do that. So, if for any reason, you were to look at that information, it's just a profile. It really doesn't have any PII in it. So, it's a false fear, but it's absolutely an understood fear that many people might have. Like, are you sending it out into the cloud where I can't, other people can get it? And that's not the case.
Yep. Charles, I see you saying you're not scared, but maybe a little overwhelmed. Darren is saying yes, but I'm not sure David is even real. Yeah, I've had a lot of people ask if I'm a robot. I'm not unaccustomed to that accusation. I see Alex saying, how do the panelists and yourself forecast this will impact data privacy? Alex, we'll get to your question here in just a moment. Mike, on my team, if you can start dropping these into the document there, I'll make sure to get those. Teresa saying she has to drop off early. If anybody has to drop off early, just leave your best email in the chat. Let us know that you have to leave, and we'll make sure our teams will get back to you and get you the recording. Mary is saying AI is the tool. The skill is in the curator. Mary, love that perspective. Ellie, I'm going to come to you. How about you? I want to know, what do you notice in terms of this fear factor within, let's say, Allied with your staff, or maybe even with yourself, if you're willing to be vulnerable and share? What are you seeing? What are you sensing?
Well, I think it's human nature to have a fear of the unknown. And, AI has just really started to get traction over the last 24 to 24 months or so, really commercially, right? So I know it's been used for years, but commercially, we're really hearing about it over the last several years. In our business, we're not looking to reduce employee count. What we're really looking to do, and I think Mary's comment was very well stated, we're looking to take tasks that are lower level and to simplify those tasks through tools like AI and free up our human resources so that they can provide more enhanced customer experience, greater level of service, and even different products and services. So we're really looking at it as an opportunity to expand our offerings through the tools that we're using. And I'll give you an example. So we only have 90 employees or so here. We're a smaller company, but we have 2 full-time employees that are working on the marketing side. And if you follow us on LinkedIn and you check out our website and you look at some of the material we're sending you, I can tell you that in the last 18 months, with the help of AI and AI tools, we've been able to generate a tremendous amount of copy and content for just a couple of individuals, from social media, the new website, multiple brochures, presentations that are customized to clients, a variety of email drip campaigns, and generating 2 customer events. And that would have been unthinkable in the past with just 2 of us. So
Yeah.
I think it's something that can really be helpful to marketers, especially those individuals that are working on limited resources.
Ellie, what do you say when I show you the stats from, let's say, Goldman, right? Goldman Sachs saying, hey, look, 300 million jobs worldwide, or 1 in 5 workers are at risk of losing their jobs. What do you say to that? And if somebody on your staff brings that to you, that kind of concern, what do you say?
I'd say it's a great opportunity to learn a new skill set, that there's still jobs and there's still work to be done. And we're not looking to eliminate Allied as a company. And I think many employers, we're looking to solve for some of the talent acquisition issues that we've experienced over the last several years. And
Sure.
we expect that AI will be really helpful in doing so.
Yep. Oz, I'm going to go to you now. So you have a wide view, a global perspective here. As you speak to folks around the world, first of all, I'm curious, are these kinds of fears that we pick up here in North America, are these true across the world? And if so, how do you help people think about some of their existential fears, if you will, as it relates to AI?
First of all, the answer is yes. There are fears. There is change, there is everyone can sense that change is in the air, and many of us are concerned, have questions. Things are not always entirely clear. We can see the strikes that are just around, those borderlines. Is it clear? What is someone's going to use my information? It's not. The legal system is very slow to follow with the accelerated progress of technology, especially AI. People that tell me, oh, let me stand on the sideline and wait a couple of years and see where it goes. I'm like, dude, this is progressing every quarter. Is another revolution. 2 years from now, you're gonna be behind. In the end, when we talk about the fears, those fears are shared in different regions. But when I have that discussion, I just had that discussion in Berlin, in Germany, just last week, and in Amsterdam over the weekend with folks, and I think that in the end, going back to that article of 300 jobs lost, I will challenge this with the counter of, but how many jobs are created? Because when we're localizing, for example, speaking for ourselves, when we localize the content, we are basically not always replacing an existing job. We are creating a new task that could not have been done before. We are taking, we're taking content that otherwise, without the tools, would not be done before, which means that now if I just put another 1 person to curate that and make sure that it's good, or another even quarter person to sit in the back and monitor and everything, I created a new job that did not exist before. And I think that's where the focus should be not on the job elimination, but on the job creation. And yes, there's going to be some change. People, jobs are going to shift from, the carriage drivers became taxi drivers. Maybe
Right.
not directly, but they shifted their job into using the new technology. And that's probably inevitable. In the end, we see that you see the value of it. And the question is, how fast are we going to embrace it, and how fast are we going to be part of this in order to find our spot in this new world?
Yep. Yeah, I see a good comment here from Kurt. I'm going to read it out loud. You don't need an IQ of 150 to use AI. I think that's an important point, Oz, because I know some people have a fear of, hey, maybe I'm just not smart enough to use this new technology. Kurt is saying, I find it very intuitive and easy to learn. And so, folks, when I showed you ChatGPT, I believe, this is my view, that the reason why this is accelerated is because OpenAI made available an interface to it previously was only used by nerds like me, let's say, through an API. They made it available to chat with, just like you would a friend, right? If you're texting Ellie or texting Paul or emailing Oz something, they put that layer, that interaction layer on top of the AI that was in some ways already there. So I agree with what you're saying, Kurt. It is easy to learn. Don't let fear hold you back, he says. Put it to work for you. So I want to go to everyone's questions now. There were a lot of questions that came in advance, and I know we still have a few moments left here with everybody. My team, if you don't mind, in the last page of that document, go ahead and put in the questions that have come in so I can make sure to answer those. But I'm going to give you a few, team, that have come in advance of this session. Paul, the first one is coming to you. It's from Hazel. And Paul, Hazel is asking, can AI help me to get the right customer with the right message at the right time in order to save our clients money and get better results? What would you say to Hazel?
Sure. Hazel, this goes back to my discussion previously about using predictive marketing analytics. So first, obviously, you have to, getting the right customer requires knowledge of your audience and reaching the right people. Second, the right message should be personal and individual, and the message should target the individual needs. So you can base specific messaging based on the data that you have about that individual. So information that you already have within your CRM or your MIS system, right? And then you can create an omni-channel approach for messaging, again, personally. So for instance, you could create a multi-platform message, such as direct mail and email blasts, and then add response mechanisms such as personalized URLs to not only get your message out, but give multiple ways of responding, which will obviously increase response rates. So third, regarding at the right time. So this really lends itself to some new features of AI, such as predictive marketing analytics. So that can help you understand more about the individual, allows you to predict what they will do next, such as, what is the likelihood of a customer who made a purchase in the last 30 days to buy again within the next 180 days, or, getting into other more details, such as potential churn, drivers of churn, attrition rates, marketing segments, key drivers of sales, and things of that nature. So you can get very detailed with AI as well. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. There's so many questions still coming in, so I'm gonna keep throwing more of these. And folks, if you can stick around, I'm going to ask the panel to stay another, let's say, 10 minutes past the hour. If you have a hard stop at the hour, again, just let us know in the chat. Put your best email, and we'll make sure that you get the recording along with the questions that are continuing to come in, answered by the panel. Ellie, I'm going to give you this one from Lisa.
Okay.
Lisa is asking, how can AI help us work on updating copy for different service line messaging, as well as communication efforts to recruit new members?
Okay. So Lisa, I would say that there's a lot of generative AI tools that are out there that can create simple content and messaging that you can use in communications. Dave, you showed some of them when you were going through your example. AI can be used to create A/B testing, print, direct mail, digital communications. and we can allow it to assist us in some content generation, but also with analysis and examining of results after post-campaign. Some copywriting platforms that we've used include copy.ai, Grammarly, ChatGPT. ChatGPT has a number of plugins that can help you to optimize your efforts. And what I would say is we have this guide that everyone will get for attending. We'll be sending that out digitally. That's 87 resources, and there's lists of different tools that are available for you depending on what you're looking to use them for. So I think you'll find that to be a really valuable tool that you can use. We also have it in print form. So if you have a sales rep, please reach out to your sales rep. Otherwise, I'm hoping maybe you guys can drop in the chat our contact email. So anybody can reach out to us. We're happy to engage and have some conversations here.
Thank you, Ellie. I'm going to go to the questions here. I see one from Daria. How do I use AI in a B2B scenario? Let me go to you, Oz, if you can just give a little texture on that. How would you say AI could be used in a B2B scenario?
I would say, so there is actually a company that I'm very familiar with. They are called 6 Sense. It's the number 6 Sense. Would highly recommend checking them out because they provide business intelligence around exactly that, around your website, your digital assets. And it's fascinating what they can do with generative AI very specifically. Their CTO was on the panel with me at Macon, so I got a chance to get to know them a little better. But I would highly recommend that. There are many scenarios where you can use AI in B2B. Again, I know what we deal with is mainly the messaging, the access to content, but there are other tools and companies that will allow you to either format the question, your messages, really shorten the time that you and the amount of effort that you need to invest in crafting that message to your audience, whether that's a consumer or whether that's another business.
I know, folks, we're right at the hour. Again, like I said, if you have to leave, please say thank you and goodbye and give the panel appreciation there in the chat, along with your best email so we can get you the recording. We're going to go another 10 or 15 minutes on your questions here to make sure we get every last drop of value out of the panel here. Daria, I'm going to throw something at you here. When you ask a question like how to use AI in a B2B scenario, that is a big opportunity for you and for everyone else here to actually use AI to answer that question. And it's one little tip that I would give you is that if you have ChatGPT, even the free version, open it up, put it on one of your monitors if you have multiple monitors, or have it open in a tab. And whenever you feel the urge to ask somebody on your staff or another person a question, try asking ChatGPT that question. Use it as a teammate, as a team member, because you will be able to dialogue and get insights out of it that will help you understand how to better leverage it. Ellie, have you ever done something like that? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but have you ever treated it like a teammate?
I treat it like my Google, and I love that suggestion. It's one I might employ with my children, now that you say that. But no, I think having ChatGPT available it's a great resource. And, I keep seeing it's more, we've got to use it more as opposed to Google. Try ChatGPT, and
yes,
that content's so dynamic and it's so interactive, which is what you don't have with a normal search engine. So especially if you're working from home, great opportunity to interact with a human-like application.
Yep. And in some cases better than humans, as we've seen. Charles is saying, would you consider ChatGPT to be the current king of AI or the most essential AI tool for marketing, and are all other apps supplemental or niche? I'll give you my perspective on that, Charles, and then panel, if you can wave your hand at me if you have a view on this. Charles, I often use 2 or 3 head-to-head, ChatGPT being one of them, Claude being another, Bard is a third. And so sometimes they have little features that are, a bit different. I like some of the features that Claude has as an example that ChatGPT doesn't. So I generally will use 3, but the example I showed you was ChatGPT, and I would say that it's remarkable. Panel, Oz, what's your perspective on that?
I would just drop a couple of more names. Jasper is a great tool as well. And I would actually give a shout out to the third panelist with me on that specific panel, Writer. So I don't know if you've heard, they just raised $100 million a couple of days ago. Great tool that is also very specific to your needs. They know how to train models that are specific on your data. So it's very secure, very private. You're not sharing with anyone. They are HIPAA compliant and all of that, beautiful things that they can do there. There's a reason why they're doing really, really great.
Yeah, very impressive young lady that was there on the panel with you. Really, really remarkable, and I am using them as well. Paul, what are your thoughts on ChatGPT being the king of AI?
Yeah, so I think it's collaborative. So ChatGPT, I think more people have been exposed to it and they understand a little bit more how to interact with it. There's so many more, Midjourney, Writesonic, Replit, Synthesia for, video development, Pecan, which is fantastic for, like I was talking about before, marketing insights and analytics, things like that. So there's really a whole range of subcategories that are all AI, but they aren't necessarily top of mind when it comes to, they're not really reported in the media and things like that, so they don't get as much exposure.
The advice that I would give anybody here who feels like, oh my gosh, this is overwhelming, you guys are listing 24 different applications, I don't know where to begin. Here's what I would recommend, and same thing I told the group last week. Commit to me right now to put 1 hour, just 1 hour on your calendar. Make an appointment with yourself. Just block that out and just start to get your hands dirty. Even if it's just with ChatGPT, it's free to sign up. Start playing with it. Do the things that I just showed you today. If you commit to spending that 1 hour, putting that on your calendar, you will be, in some cases, light years ahead of other people who are just simply unwilling to get their hands dirty. So if you're willing to make that commitment, let me know in the chat. I'll hold you accountable to that. I want to come to Claire's question. Is there a course you recommend that teaches you how to talk to AI to get the end results you're looking for? Panel, wave your hand at me. Who wants to take that one? Is there a course that you recommend? Oz, I see you thinking there. Who's got some thoughts on this?
I think there's a lot of content and a lot of information available. I know we have a training company that we use, and there's several courses that are available for AI. I actually just took one on Monday. So all the way from beginner to just starting to learn about the history of AI and where it came from and where it's potentially going. But I think if you start looking at companies that are providing training, I know I also participate in an ongoing training session. It's a webinar session. It's every week. And last week was on AI, and it was specific AI for sales professionals. And there was a lot of great information that was shared by that team. But I think if you start to sign up for different AI newsletters and such, you'll find your inbox is inundated with different classes that you can expose yourself to.
Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of free stuff on there. In those newsletters. Twitter is a good place. Anybody who's on TikTok also will find a lot of good resources there. Oz, what's your recommendation?
I just did a quick, not Google, but search on Udemy. I don't know if you're familiar with that online, online course. And there are plenty of courses on ChatGPT and under the marketing, in fact, under the marketing section, you can go digital marketing, you'll find ChatGPT courses. There's plenty of people that are willing to, teach you everything they know for $15.
Would you drop the name of that Udemy URL there in the chat for everyone? Oz, that would be great. Jerry was asking, Ellie, when we did the example of the mail file, showing the example, he directed his question, I think, at me. He said, you cut and pasted info for 2 records, but what about a mail file that's got 1 million records? Yeah, obviously, Jerry, that was an illustrative example to show you the potential for a mail file of 1 million, 5 million, 10 million records at scale. The way we look at it is that the APIs, the programming interfaces, are going to be what's leveraged. So there's not going to be a human pasting text back and forth. It'll be done programmatically through the APIs that are available to these large language models.
And can I just add to that too? I mean, yes. Paul spoke a little bit about this. I think what we'd also be looking is we'd be creating profiles out of your data and then loading those profiles into the models, right? So we wouldn't actually be uploading that data. Certainly Paul could clarify, but I think just, from a security perspective, I would, for two records as an example, I think it's an awesome tool to show, but, we might go about it a little differently.
Absolutely. 100%. So Jerry, let us know if that answers your question. I'm going to throw this question to you, Oz, from Anthony. I suspect you'll have some good insight here. As I was showing Midjourney, Anthony was asking, are these images royalty free? Give me your view on that.
Wow, that's a great topic. As far as I know, they are royalty free, but that's definitely something that needs to be further investigated with Midjourney, with your subscription level, I guess. I mean, there are different aspects to that, but the entire discussion over copyrights and royalties and everything is an ongoing discussion. This is what goes back to what I said before, where the legal system is strolling behind the progress.
Yeah, it needs to catch up. Folks, we're going to go a few more minutes. Thank you all for being here. I still see a lot of you in the room. Hopefully, I'm getting to as many of these questions as I can in the next few minutes. Let's see, Ellie or Paul, I'm going to go to you on this question from Darren. Has Allied created prompt libraries for their marketing team to use for clients? If so, could you explain in more detail? Who would like to take that one, Ellie or Paul?
I knew the finger was coming in my direction.
Yep.
So no, we have not. We are just scratching the surface. We use it for generation of content, of campaigns. I am using it to set up and create drip campaigns. So I'm using it for a lot of that as far as how we should strategically plan those campaigns out. As far as exposing our sales team, I'm actually looking into some training to see what's available for them so that they can become a little bit more familiar with how to use some of these things. And certainly, our own internal resources will be key in some of that training.
Yeah, and when it comes to, data and coding and things like that, interacting with GitHub or another AI type program, we have prompts on, what licensing we have, what vendors we have licenses with. So there are canned responses that we do use. However, and it kind of goes back to what Oz was saying before. It'll also say, do we use X for image licensing or things like that. So we can put those parameters in there and use those in order to output certain code levels. But yeah, nothing on a great grand scale right now.
Darren's asking an interesting question. I'll go to all three of you who, wiggle your hand at me there if you've got a response here. Darren is saying, do your organizations have AI policies in place? I see you nodding, Paul. Okay, Ellie, let's go to Ellie and then Oz.
So we actually recently deployed an AI policy. And so we took it from a human resource perspective and incorporated it as part of our security awareness training. So that's something that we are deploying currently. It's just something that we know will evolve, but we needed a starting point. So we are doing that.
Maybe, yeah, I will add, we don't have an AI policy because it's our policy. We don't need to call it AI policy because we are an AI company. So everything we do is somehow tied to AI. But essentially, we have guardrails in place and we have different methods and legal frameworks that are built into how we built everything and how we actually deal on the day-to-day basis in order to make sure that everything is legally and ethically manufactured. I will say that, we put a lot of effort also on GDPR certification, so we are trying to stay always at the top in terms of, making sure that everything is secure, we care about privacy and all those kind of things. But unfortunately, there's nothing that is officially the AI policy that you should have. And that is why we're swimming around, what exists.
Yep. Question for Wolfgang, Tony, Suzanne, Scott, Nicole, Mary, everyone who is still here. I want you to take a moment and tell the panel, what's the one thing that stood out to you today? If there was something that was like the spark that you needed, or an insight or an idea that you hadn't thought before, something that you learned today that was like, the thing that you underlined in your notebook or as you're taking notes, would you do us a favor and take a moment, drop that into the chat? I'm going to read some of those off. Not only is it informative for us as a panel, but it's also informative for each of you to understand kind of where your peers at. So Darren, I know you have been very interactive. Jerry, Elaine, Charles, I want to hear from you. Claire, Vivian, Mary, if you're still here, if you haven't left the room, please let us know. Claire, you also asked a question, is the image generator free? So the what I showed you was Midjourney. I want to say that it was $10 to gain access to that. What is ChatGPT now these days, guys? Is it $20 for the paid version? Is that right? Yeah?
It is, yep.
Yep.
Yeah, so there's really no financial barrier on any of these. Scott is saying what stood out for him is the ease of taking model data profile and getting new copy and images. Fantastic. Tony is saying, I learned a lot and appreciate where we are going. It's vital to embrace AI. Thank you so much. Tony, thank you. Mary saying, I did not know how it could create photos and copy like that. Yeah, Mary, some incredible artwork. I don't know if you're seeing some of this stuff on Twitter and TikTok and other places, but I believe there are AI art contests now, right? Oz, maybe you're in this loop. You seeing that?
Yep. Absolutely.
Absolutely incredible. I think we already kind of touched on this one, but let's see if there's anything more we want to explore here. How does the panel forecast that AI will impact data privacy? Paul, I'll come to you first on this. How do you think AI will impact the future of data privacy?
So I think you have to look at the company that you're using in order to interact with. So, as long as that company is locked down and has a super level of security, that's what's really going to be most important. So data privacy is obviously extremely important, and with especially the EU and a lot of the other different countries and their laws and how strict they are, it becomes very important to make sure that you're not passing that data out into the world. And like I said before, when we're passing a profile, there is no real data that's there. It's just what things might look like. So I think from a data privacy standpoint, you have to look at the company that you're dealing with. Make sure that they're SOC 2 compliant. Make sure that they're HIPAA compliant. Depending on what you're using. So what kind of data do you have? That's what's most important.
Oz or Ellie, you want to add to that? Okay.
Paul covered it from our perspective.
Charles, you ask a good question here, and I'm actually going to use this to give everybody on the panel an opportunity to leave everyone with a closing thought. Charles says here in the chat, I've learned new ways to speak to ChatGPT that can really help me create content. Thank you. Well, thank you, Charles. I'm going to give you a tip, Charles, and for everybody else who's still here in the room, that has helped me personally use ChatGPT in a more effective way. And panel, I want you to be thinking about your tip as well. I'm going to give you an opportunity to give your one tip to the audience that's still here. My tip to Charles and to everybody else is, you may have noticed this in the example of ChatGPT that I gave. One little line that really helps it dial in the efficacy of the response it gives to you, which is to ask the AI, basically ask me questions, ask me the human more questions to fully understand how to give me what I'm looking for. Something to that effect. You saw me do that in the examples. Ask me questions until you're ready to give me a response. Kind of the gist of the idea, right? So when you learn how to prompt, well with ChatGPT and other things, you'll learn how to make it smarter and work better for you. And that one little line, team, everyone who's listening here, I would give you that tip as something that has really been impactful for me, for my personal use. Ellie, I'm going to come to you. One closing tip for everybody here in the audience.
I would say there's a lot of people that are new to AI. I would say you have to start somewhere, and you have to play, you have to get out there, and you start. I love the idea of an hour a day. And I think as you go through and you're putting your prompts in there, you're constantly going back, and you have to just keep refining what you're looking for, and just know that it's going to take time to get to the expert level that you are, Dave. But
now you got to start. You said an hour a day. I was suggesting an hour a week, but you're one-upping me there.
Well, we'll see. We'll see where we can take this.
Push it. I love it. Oz, what would your one tip be to the audience? What's your one expert insight that you would want to leave everyone with?
My tip would be, it's coming.
Okay.
Covering your face or covering your eyes is not going to help you, and actually you're going to stay behind. So don't wait for it to become, to run away from you, but stay with it. It is here and it's happening. As you could see in this presentation that we had today, was fascinating to see that ChatGPT in action. This is going beyond just text. It goes to image, we saw it. It goes to video. It goes to creation. It's going to go pretty soon into live. We're going to see, and we are already starting to deal with live dubbing. So creating dubbing or dubbed content in multiple languages in live. So this is going to be part of our future. Right now, we are fearful, we are scared. In a couple of years from now, this is going to be seamless as part of our lives. And you want to be part of it. You want to be part of that revolution, just like when digital came into print. Digital came into print and you realized I can use that. AI, generative AI specifically, is here and you can use that, and you should step in front of it.
Paul, what's your closing tip, your expert tip for everyone here?
Learn how to prompt. So prompting is, I've seen people get very frustrated because they'll write out a sentence and say, tell me more information about X. And that is not going to give you the answer that you're probably looking for. So, from open-ended discussions that you can have with ChatGPT, multiple choice, fill in the blank, binary, prediction, explanation, things like that. Those are going to be most important. So once you learn really how to ask a question, and you can get more defined, and even asking for additional prompts down the road, and telling the system that you want to be prompted of any questions that they have, that the ChatGPT has for you. Once you learn those prompts, you'll go much farther.
Much further, for sure. Audience, there's still a lot of you here. Do you have more questions? I'm going to give you one more chance. If you have a question for Ellie, for Oz, for Paul, please let us know in the chat. Otherwise, did you get value out of the session today? Did you enjoy it? Did you learn something? Give us some love in the chat there, some X's, some O's, some yeses. I want to hear from everyone. Tony saying all great points. Thanks for leaving us with these to move forward in AI. Tony, thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. Darren says, you bet. Great job, panel. Yes. Nicole is giving us an X and an O there. Thank you, Nicole. Or just an X. Oh, there comes the O. Okay, perfect. All right. Well, I want to give you, Ellie, an opportunity to say some closing words, and then I will bring us to a close if there are no other questions. So, Ellie, go ahead.
Okay. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. We're thrilled, especially you took another 20 minutes out of your day beyond the end time. So we appreciate that. If there's any questions, we're happy to engage in a conversation, see how we can help you through this, how we can learn together. So don't hesitate to reach out. I know that the team put our contact information in the chat. Visit us online, reach out to your sales reps, and we'll look forward to that next conversation.
Fantastic. Ellie, thank you for hosting the event today. Oz, thank you for your participation. Paul, you as well. Thank you for putting everything together today. But most importantly, thank you to everybody who was here and is here now. The 80 minutes or so that you've given us, I know, is expensive. And the most valuable resource we all have is our time. And so I appreciate you being here with us. Thank you. Reach out to Allied if you have any further questions. And everyone, have a great rest of the day. Thanks, everybody.